All right. Hello, fans, viewers, and listeners. This is the Fight Insight podcast. We are episode 151. That is crazy. And we're here to do our end of the year show. With me today, I have Dr. Jimmy. Introduce yourself, my friend.
Hello, I'm Dr. Demetrius Stavros, also known as Dr. Jimmy, and I absolutely love doing these shows with you, Timmy.
There we go. And of course, our other longtime friend and guest of the podcast, Matt Queso Padilla. Matt, introduce yourself, my friend.
Yeah, I've been training and fighting for like 8 years now. Now I'm doing the matchmaking for Dan Henderson's fight night, and happy to be here as a 4-time guest.
4 times, baby. Dr. Jimmy, what number are you at here?
I think we're at 4 as well. I've done maybe 4 or 5. Yeah.
Very nice. 4-4. Anyways, so we've got our end of year show. We're going to go through all our categories, which we picked, which I'm very, very proud of. I feel like our nominees are better than any that you'll have seen anywhere else, including any sites. I feel like our nominees span the breadth of the earth, which is a lot different than most places, which are only doing UFC candidates, which is crazy. And we'll talk about some other things. Before we get to this show, I want to say next week on the podcast, we have Dricus Duplessis. He is our guest for the episode. Yeah, we recorded
amazing.
That is cool, man. We recorded this interview a few weeks prior, so it was before the scuffle with Sean Strickland at UFC 296. So it was before that, but he gives tons of great stuff. He talks about Sean, talks about a whole bunch of things. He has an incredible Donald Trump story. So stay tuned for that next week. It's very, very good. Also, I do want to give a shout out to some friends of the podcast. Jade Masson Wong from BKFC. She was the blonde French girl. Many of you will remember him because you're perverts, or remember her because you are perverts. She made her pro boxing debut and won. So congratulations to Jade Masson Wong. And former guest of the podcast, UNF fighter Khalil Pearson. You may know him as Luscious Gordo. He's now signed to fight at UNF. I think it's 14 or 15. It's January 27th. That's all you have to know. So UNF, and we will have Khalil back on the podcast as well to talk about preparing for that. I want to give a shout out to Rageworks Podcast Network, rageworksnetwork.com. Go check us out there with a bunch of other audio podcasts that you can find. Now we will get on to our award show after this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fight Insight Podcast.
That is Raine, of course, but she is not here, absent. So we wish her well. Merry Christmas to her. Happy New Year's, guys. Happy New Year's to both of you.
Happy New Year's.
You too.
All right. Well, so this year was a crazy year. Like I said, our nominees are very good. We went on Instagram. We showed people the nominees. They voted. So I've got the results of that in as well. But which category do we want to do first? Matt, I'll give you the honors. What category would you like to hit up first?
Going to go with Female Fighter of the Year.
Female Fighter of the Year. Nobody can call Matt sexist ever. Here we go. I'm going to play the candidates. I'm going to show on screen. We can talk over top of it. It's about 30 seconds for those only on audio. We'll try to yell out the people as they show up. So, Female Fighter of the Year 2023. Here's the nominees.
Some knees on the inside.
Airtex from 1FC. Airtex.
Y Alexa Grasso dice, este cinturón se va a
Alexa Grasso, of course, UFC flyweight champion. Britain Hart, Strawweight, BKFC. And finally, former guest of the podcast, UFC fame. All right. So, hopefully people could see that. Could you guys hear me as I'm talking over that?
A little bit.
A little bit.
Okay. We got Stamp Fairtex, 1FC. We got Alexa Grasso, UFC champion. We got Britain Hart, guest of the podcast, former co-host of the podcast, friend of the podcast, strawweight BKFC champion. And then we get Lupe Godinez, former guest of the podcast, 4 times winner during the year in 7 months. People are saying it's 4 times in a year. It's 4 times in 7 months she won. Matt, you picked the category, so I will turn it over to you. Who is your choice for Female Fighter of the Year?
I think it's got to be like a mix with how much activity you had and also the weight of the fights, right? It wasn't as much activity, but I'm still going to go with Stamp Fairtex.
Damn! Matt, that is a great. Why would you pick Stamp?
You know, I was thinking Alexa at first, and then I actually saw your clip with your nominees for the Fight and Sight choices, and I was like, wow, we're kind of watering it down if we go with somebody who won a title and then got a draw. So I think Stamp really knocked it out of the water with getting a huge title win and then another win earlier in the year.
Yeah, so Stamp had 2 wins in MMA. She also won a kickboxing fight as well against a Wonder Girl, right? So she beat Wonder Girl, and then she had 2 MMA fights, wins the title as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, 3 fights technically in 1FC. Your pick is Stamp Fairtex. I'm very happy for that because that is I haven't seen her name anywhere.
Right.
Like anywhere, and I feel like that's a shame. Dr. Jimmy, who is your choice for Female Fighter of the Year?
All right, this is a good one. I also really like Stamp Fairtex because of the fact that she won the atomweight championship in MMA. She's a 3-sport champ: Muay Thai, kickboxing, MMA. This lady is legit. She is a phenomenal fighter. But I gotta go with Lupi Godinez. 4 wins in 2023. She's got 3 decisions. She's got a submission with the rear naked choke. I think that she's been very active during the years. I think she's. I'm a little shocked at her ranking. I think she's only like 11th or something like that in the strawweight division. But I got to give it to her for just the activity and the fact that she's won every one of her fights and going to decision. I mean, that's a lot of rounds. She's fought a lot and she's done a lot of work this year. So I got to go with Lupi Godinez.
God dang, that is crazy. Dr. Jimmy. Now, this is where we really needed Raine because she's got to break the tie here. I will go to the fans, though. The fans voted 44% in favor of. You want to take a guess?
I'm guessing
Alexa Grasso. 44% for Alexa Grasso. That's because people only watch
UFC.
Only watch UFC and only know that. But yeah, Matt, I'm with you, man. She won 1 fight very well. That's great. But then the second fight was a draw. I don't know how you win Fighter of the Year with 1 win and a draw, except for the fact that you're saying you beat the legend in Valentina. So that is crazy. For me, it's really hard because all those nominees I really love. I think Britton Hart has done a freaking hell of a job putting the face of BK, like becoming one of the female faces of BKFC, if not the female face. Her fights have been incredible. Her skill, her talent is incredible. I really like her. I like what she's doing. Lupi is crazy. The 4 fights in 7 months, that is crazy. The only reason why it's a little bit less for me is because of who she was fighting. It wasn't like big names, but nonetheless, you're still in the UFC. Hitting 4 fights is crazy. But I think I'm going to have to give it to Stamp Fairtex as well. I think Stamp Fairtex, crazy performance. We do have her nominated for one of the knockouts of the year as well. I feel like she's just really shone this year. I think she's the one face of 1FC that could really make it over in the Western market. I feel like if she came over, I know she is learning English. I think that's an important thing too, but she's learning English. She's a killer. She's got the look. She's got the skills. I think Stamp with 3 wins, a championship belt, and fighting in 2 different disciplines, I think that takes it. So guys, we're going to go Stamp Fairtex as our female fighter of the year. Congratulations to all the nominees, because god damn it, they all turned up. So yeah, are we happy with Stamp Fairtex? We're okay.
I'm happy.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. All right, there we go. Dr. Jimmy, what is the next category that we will hit up?
Let's go with male fighter of the year.
Oh, we're gonna go to male fighter of the year next. I thought this would be our last one. All right, here we go. Let's put these up and see who our nominees are. Sean Strickland, number 1. Infight Sangane from PFL, number 2. Go to BKFC, you got Mike Perry, number 3, platinum Mike Perry. And number 4, he loves to beat up the little guys, Islam Makhachev. All right, so in case you couldn't hear me, that is BKFC's Mike Perry. You got Islam Makhachev. You've got Impa from PFL. I'm going to refrain from saying the last name because I might get it wrong. And first we had Sean Strickland, who has pretty much won Fighter of the Year on every single site I've seen. Hands down. It's like not even close.
Yeah, I didn't think anybody would vote for him, honestly, just because of who he is. But I'm glad he's done.
Yeah, I mean, wait, you thought people would not vote for him?
Yeah, just because of how outlandish he is.
How polarizing he is? He's become the Steve Austin of MMA because he's garnering support regardless of how ridiculous and the antics that he plays. Remember, he started this year getting to a fight with my friend Commander Dale and challenging him to a death match in the desert. And if you recall, Sean Strickland was reposting our podcast where Dale came on and talked about it. So Dr. Jimmy, we'll go to you. Male fighter of the year. Before you say yours, can you guess who the worldly fans are, who they voted for, Dr. Jim? Who do you think our fans?
I am going to guess that the fans have voted for Sean Strickland.
Yes, by a smashing margin. By the end of it, what was the vote here? Not bad. 53%. 53% were for Sean Strickland. But so Sean Strickland gets the fan vote. Dr. Jimmy, who is yours?
All right, so it was a toss-up for me. Impa Kasangane, this guy's fought 5 times in 2023. Yeah. 5 times. TKO, decision, submission, KO decisions. 5 times. Yeah. But I got to go with Sean Strickland. He's fought 3 times this year, and he beat, honest to God, arguably one of the best middleweights that's ever fought at the highest echelon of mixed martial arts in Israel Adesanya. And he did it with a style that most people would have dismissed as being something that would have never, ever had been able to take out Izzy. And I mean, the guy's fight, he's got that, that Philly shell. He's got that really straight up and down stand. He marches forward with every single second of the round. And I think it was just a shock for everybody that he ended up winning that fight. But I got to go with Sean Strickland. He's won 3 times this year. He's taken the belt. He is a polarizing figure, but that also makes him very entertaining. And I think it's good for the UFC. And yeah, that's my guy. I got to go with Sean Strickland.
Dang, that's crazy. I didn't think you were going to pick that, Dr. Jimmy. Matt?
Making it unpredictable for you, Timmy.
Matt, where are you going with this, my friend?
I think Impa was a huge contender for me, considering all the activity in the PFL and just the comeback story in general. Being the most viral and one of the worst knockouts, and you see something like that and you're like, how does this guy ever come back from something like that? And now he's a millionaire, and I don't think the guy who beat him with that knockout, Joaquin Buckley, probably didn't make $1 million off of that. So I'm actually leaning towards Impa on this one, honestly. Sean got the 3, but the extra activity and the story behind Impa, I think it means a lot. And it might not have been against Israel, but it was still a huge thing to me, especially with all that activity. And PFL is still up there, They've got a lot of good talent, and I think it's worth it.
Dang, that is crazy. We may need to call Raine because I am voting for Impa. I think it was really close for me. It definitely was not Sean. I think I love Sean. I think that what he did was great, but honestly, and I know this is weird because I wouldn't be able to name any of the ones for Impa either, but I wouldn't be able to name Sean's other 2 victories. Right? Like Ankalev, maybe?
It was Imavov and Magomedov. So Abusupyan Magomedov and Nasruddin Imamov. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Imavov.
What do you say? Yeah,
those 2 guys.
There wasn't anything I said. So that's the only thing. Like the guys that he beat, yes, that was incredible, but it wasn't like big names in the UFC. Then he beats Adesanya, so okay, fine. Impa, though, with 5 wins, that's huge to me. And like Matt says, coming off, well, not directly coming off, but coming off that viral knockout, right? Which could really mentally drain you. I don't know. So that's tough. I really like Platinum Mike Perry. I really, really like Mike Perry as fighter of the year because you think like he's freaking boosted BKFC out of the water, right? I mean, BKFC was already incredible, but fighting Rockhold and all the freaking what do you call it? The commentary, like the interviews that they had where I'm going to headbutt your fist and stuff like that, right? Like his interviews were crazy. What he does is crazy. And then to go out and beat Eddie Alvarez as well. was pretty awesome and pretty shocking, right? They keep giving him these wicked matches. Now he's got what is it? Not the platinum belt. What's his belt?
What was it? It's a King of Violence, yeah.
Yeah, the King of Violence belt, right? And before that, he would always bring out his own belt that he bought and paid for himself. Like, the guy's just such a character. So when I think like character outside the cage, I think like Mike Perry is the more funnier, interesting guy compared to Sean Strickland outside of it. But yeah, I'm going to go with Impa. I think so. Now the problem is we've got the tie. And how do we beat this tie?
Do we flip the fight and sight coin? You got one?
Is there an official fight site coin that I need to flip here?
The logo made one.
Well, here's the thing too. In the fan vote, Impa came in second at 21%. So I feel like I'm just going to give it to Impa. I feel like I'm going to use president rules here, like executive
veto.
order.
Executive veto.
And I think I'm going to give it to Impa, man. The guy deserves it. I feel like, look, Sean's been getting the title of Fighter of the Year from every other avenue, right? Like, everybody's giving it. I don't see Impa's name up there, and it shocks me why he's not. And again, I keep looking and I'm like, wait, is this a UFC only Fighter of the Year category? And it never says that. So I'm like, where the frick is these other guys, you know? No, screw it. Executive decision made. Impa, Matt, the last name again?
Kasanganai.
He is our male Fighter of the Year. Impa from PFL. Congratulations, my friend. Big win. Getting the $1 million, getting the PFL, and then getting the Fight and Sight Male Fighter of the Year award.
Which is arguably the biggest one that he got.
It's obviously the biggest award he gets this year. So we're going with Impa. Next category, Matt, which one would you like to do?
Let's go ahead with Submission of the Year.
Oh, Submission of the Year. Okay. Submission of the Year. I haven't been seeing a lot of Submission of the Year awards going around. Have you guys?
Not really.
No.
Okay. I haven't seen that at all. I was going through them, looking through the list, looking through what people were saying, got the nominees from people online. We went really deep here on this one. We went down to peak fighting championships for one of the contenders, but it was a really cool one. So here are our categories for Submission of the Year. And interesting to note, they are all females. So that was pretty cool as well. But I really do like these nominees. Here we go. Check them out.
She's thinking about it. She has to tap
on the head and create space, but does not let go. We thought it was a strike.
Big Bad. You've got Alexa Grasso, the fight and Alex. That's what she's doing. And then you get Amber.
She's made that space. She just got the reversal. She just tapped the tap.
All right, guys. So again, and I apologize if you didn't see it. So Jillian the Savage Robertson, former guest of the podcast, she beat Rose Namajunas in 30 seconds,
right?
At Fury Grappling or whatever that was. Then you get Alexa Grasso choking out Valentina. Then you get Big Bad Olga Rubin, former guest of the podcast, at Invicta FC, getting the first ever female buggy choke finish. She says she practices that all the time. So that's not a fluke or anything like that. That's her move. And then you get Amber Terrell, who that was a submission from our good friends at The Fighting Now, which is an Instagram page. And they sent in that one. They said this was the one to look at. And that was from Peak Fighting Championships. I apologize if I got that wrong, but it's Amber Terrell she's in what appeared to be like a triangle. And then she reverses it into a reverse. What do you call that move, Matt?
It looked like a reverse triangle from there.
Yeah, reverse triangle, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting fight insight fact. I hit that on a dude before in sparring by accident, and it was one of my greatest submissions of all time.
Could have been if you recorded it.
Yeah, it could have been. I could have had submission of the year. God dang. All right. So, Dr. Jimmy, Matt, we're gonna go to you. Submission of the year. Who do you give it to of those categories? Or if you had someone else, let us know as an honorable mention. But of these four, who are your pick?
Yeah, honorable mention would probably be that Twister that was hit in the beginning of the year, right? Man, I'm stumping on the name.
Was that Bryce Mitchell?
No, it was somebody else. He made his UFC debut. He was supposed to fight one of my buddies, Ricky Ferrar, and that's the only reason I kept up with this guy. But he had a Twister. I think it was in his debut at the Apex, and that's definitely an honorable mention. But I got to give it to Alexa Grasso. Just, she beats the legend. You might not be able to give her fighter of the year for this submission, but to finish somebody like Valentina, who's so well-rounded, I think it means a lot.
All right. Well, there you go. Okay, so we're going to go one vote for Alexa Grasso. I will go with the fan vote here. And let me see who we got for the fans. Oh, dang. Jillian Robertson ekes it out with 34% over Alexa Grasso, who was only 31%. So those two were at the tops. Olga Rubin came in at 18% and Amber Terrell at 17%. So it was a pretty close race if you really think about it. But Jillian Robertson gets the nods from the fans. I guarantee you those fans did not even watch that fight. Nobody ever really talked about that. Right?
Yeah.
Like Jillian Robertson choking out Rose in like 30 seconds. I never saw anything about that on media sites at all.
Yeah, not really. I think it was after she lost the title and she wanted to come back and do more jiu-jitsu, and then that didn't go the way she wanted, probably.
No, and got smoked bad. Dr. Jimmy, who is your pick for submission of the year?
Let me give you an honorable mention, and this is not on your list, but I'm going to give you Mike Musumeci and Shinya Aoki. It was a one championship grappling match, and Mike Musumeci is like this ridiculous, legit jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's beaten Aoki, he beat Imanari. Like, this guy's for real. And if you get the chance to watch that fight, fans, please watch that fight. This guy is phenomenal. But I will tell you, of the choices that we have in front of us, that reverse triangle by Amber Terrell was insane. It was locked in tight. She was locked in. Stephanie Skinner had it locked in really tightly, and then Amber Terrell made enough space to reverse it, got the triangle choke on, and then tapped her out. And I got to give it to Amber Terrell. I think that was a ridiculous reversal. I'm going to give it to, and I think it's a local London production too, isn't it? Like the PFC. So I'm going to go with a local fighter here and go with Amber Terrell.
God dang, that is crazy. Amber Terrell coming out of nowhere to get the nod for submission of the year, and then to get the highly touted Dr. Jimmy vote. That is huge, right? People beg for that. So we got one vote for Jillian Robertson. We got one vote for Alexa Grasso. We got one vote for Amber Terrell. Fight Insight Podcast is going to shock the goddamn world, and we're going to give it to Amber Terrell because that's my vote for this as well. I think the reverse triangle is crazy. You don't see it hardly ever. If you watch the full fight, which you can find on YouTube, like look up PFC Amber Terrell, which she's going to go viral now because of this award, but you see her lock it in. Like, it's not just something that she falls into and then she fluke it into it. She moves, she makes the space. Dr. Jimmy, did you go back and watch the fight?
Yeah, I did. Oh yeah, that's like, it was ridiculous. Like, what an amazing reversal. It looked like she was going to lose. It looked like she was done. And then she made enough space. She didn't panic. She got her legs wrapped around and got that triangle choke in, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, so there we go. We are going to give it to Amber Terrell. She is the misfit. Amber, the misfit Terrell. Let's go a little bit about her. She fights at atomweight, fights out of Fitness Fight Factory. She has a pro MMA record of 2-3. But I think she's fighting soon in the new year, if I'm not mistaken, because she reached out to me when she saw that she was a nominee. So she fights in the new year. So let's wish her the best of luck. And when she wins, she's going to come on and she'll celebrate with us, celebrate her victory in the fight, and celebrate that she has just earned the submission of the year for Amber Terrell. So that's crazy. That shows why we're an amazing podcast, man. We're giving awards all around the world, all around to different people that people may not have heard of. But this is why you can't just watch UFC. You know what I mean? Like, I got a real problem with that, with people that are only watching UFC and not watching anything else. All right, Dr. Jimmy, I guess next we will go to fight of the year and leave knockout for last, since knockout might be the more exciting one. Fight of the year, I will say, was hard to find nominees. There weren't a lot of standout fights the year. It seemed weird. It seemed like there, when I was looking around, looking online, there were like a lot of like Alexa Grasso, Valentina Shevchenko, Islam Volk was a lot of them. But when you really looked at those fights, I was like, well, is that like a Griffin Bonner? Is that like a, you know what I mean? Like, is that a crazy, crazy war fight that really is fight of the year? Or were you just more interested in the outcome? Or like a lot of like Izzy versus Alex Pereira or Sean Strickland over Izzy kind of things, right? Like it seemed like it was more the end result that they were so excited as a fight, but as an overall event, I don't know what it was. Here we go with the nominees. Let's take a look at who we got and who we came up with. These are them.
Doesn't need, because he's gone toe-to-toe with one of the best strikers in the
Okay, so number 1 is Gaethje versus Kuziev. Number 2, Holloway versus Zombie. Number 3, I think this is one of your guys' picks. Queso versus Jera. And then this for sure was Dr. Jimmy's pick. Haggerty versus Nong O. That one comes out of nowhere. Dr. Jimmy, can you please explain that pick?
Oh, Haggerty versus Nong O? Okay, so Jonathan Haggerty is a 26-year-old British Muay Thai fighter. He fights out of 1FC, and he fought Nong O, who's got a record of 265 to 56 losses, which is unbelievable. And Nong O is a legend in Muay Thai. This guy is an absolute legend. And, you know, I'm not going to go much further than that unless you want me to give you my pick, unless, Matt, you're going to go first. But you tell me, Timmy, what do you want me to do?
No, go ahead and give your pick, Mike.
All right. Let me give you my pick. It was, for me, it was stuck between two. Gaethje Fiziev was such a ridiculously fantastic fight. Those two guys have cement blockheads. I don't understand how those two were standing for all 3 rounds. The amount of shots that these guys took. And Fiziev is a phenomenal stand-up fighter. This is a guy who trains out of Tiger Muay Thai. He's a Muay Thai champion. This guy is some of the fastest hands and kicks you'll see in MMA, period. And you got Gaethje, who goes toe-to-toe with him and is able to take him for all 3 rounds and beats him. First round, second round, it was tied 1-1. Third round is where the magic happened for Gaethje, and he ended up winning that fight. But I absolutely love the Haggerty-Nong O fight. It didn't last long. It was a first-round KO, but it was the shocker. I was, like, on the floor. I could not believe that this fight ended as quickly as it did. Jonathan Haggerty, this guy's like, watch his fights. Go back and see some of his fights. He had a couple of tough matches against Rodtang, and Rodtang is just like this monster of a Muay Thai fighter out of 1FC. Like, the guy's, like, they call him the Iron Man. He doesn't stop coming forward. But Haggerty won his fight against Nong O. He won the next one after that. I forgot the guy's name. It's a Brazilian fighter, I believe. But this guy's 26 years old. He's a rising star in kickboxing and Muay Thai in 1FC. I got to go with Haggerty. Nong O as my fight of the year.
Yeah, good for you, because you made me put that pick up there, which nobody knew who the hell that was, Dr. Jim. Maybe the lowest vote total ever. Only got 11% from the fans.
Watch the fight.
Go watch the fight. Exactly. Like, if anything, I really hope that this encourages people to go watch these fights, right? These other organizations. But yeah, and in that fight, Jim, you're missing, I think it was like 3 knockdowns, right? Like, Haggerty had him knocked down 3 times in that fight before the stoppage eventually.
That's right. Well, the third one was a complete lockout. He was rocked the first, went down, rocked the second time, went down. Third one, he was out. It was, and you could see the excitement in Haggerty when, like, the ref had to hold him back, so keep him away, because he felt that energy. He knew the end was near. And he ended up just finishing that fight with the third. The third knockdown was a knockout. It was just something magical to watch. Yeah,
beautiful, beautiful. Before I get to who the fans picked, Matt, I'm going to go to you. Who do you have for your 2023 fight of the year?
Yeah, I will say John Haggerty. That was a great fight, but I'd say that's more of a knockout of the year, if anything. But quick honorable mention I got to give to Kelvin Gastelum, Chris Curtis. You know, Chris Curtis. I love that guy, and that was an amazing fight, a really memorable one for me. But I can't give it to Haggerty and Nong O because it was pretty one-sided, and it did end in a knockout. But it's better with a one-sided fight is when someone could really get that Homer Simpson style going and keep taking it for 5 rounds. So my pick is Teixeira versus Hill.
Oh, you're going with Teixeira and Hill?
Yeah, I mean, that fight was just nuts. When you just watch a guy take some damage and just keep coming back, like, it doesn't even matter to you or to that guy. Like, it just doesn't matter. You just question, like, I thought this guy had knockout power. What's happening here,
Yeah. All right. So Teixeira versus Hill gets the pick from Matt. Nong O and Haggerty gets the pick from Dr. Jimmy. my pick, and this was my entry into the category, very close was going to be the Fiziev and Gaethje, because for all the reasons that Jimmy mentions, right? It was just a freaking war. When you think about the guys that you want to see fight at the top level that are just crazy, that are just going to put on a war, those are two of the guys. So when that match was even announced, I was like, holy crap, this fight of the year already just being announced. And then it lived up to the name. My pick, though, more for sentimental reasons, was Zombie versus Max Holloway. When I think of fight of the year, there's like a whole bunch of reasons why a fight could win that. But this one, I feel, had everything. It had, the crowd was crazy. The crowd was like singing the Zombie song as he came out, sang it as he left. The crowd was incredible. That was in Shanghai, right? Singapore. I always say the wrong one.
I think it was Singapore.
Singapore?
Yeah, I think it was Singapore as well. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I always say the wrong one. So Singapore. The Singapore crowd was crazy. Then you get what I would call perfect matchmaking, because you have Zombie fighting in his retirement fight. You got to give these guys someone that it's an appropriate fight for the retirement. And I feel like Max Blessed Holloway was perfect in the sense that he's respectful, he's honorable, and it was a pretty good matchup. Like, it wasn't a squash. It was a good fight back and forth, and I feel like it lived up to like what Zombie would have wanted as a retirement fight, aside from the ending with him not getting the win. But it was a good fight. He put on a good showing. The crowd was crazy. And I feel like UFC, of all the retirement fights we've ever seen, I feel like that was the best matchup that they've ever made for a retirement fight. So my nod goes to them. Can you guys guess who won the fan vote by 1%? Who won the Fight Insight fight of the year? Matt, who do you think the fans voted?
Oh wait, is it one of our picks? Because I would have assumed they picked Gaethje.
Okay, Jimmy, who do you think they picked?
I'm going to say Gaethje Fiziev. Yeah,
Gaethje and Fiziev got 38% of the vote, but Max versus Zombie got 39%.
Wow.
I am not lying. That is the official record right there. You can't see that, but I'm not a liar. 39%. So our 2023 fight of the year goes to Max versus Zombie. Are you guys okay with that pick?
for sure.
We go with the people's choice.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going with the people's choice, man. Like, I really thought that when I nominated that one, to me it was emotional because of just everything that was involved, right? But I thought when I would put that up in the voting, I thought people would like not vote for that at all. So I was really surprised when we were getting like votes and votes and votes, and they were coming in for Max and Zombie, and I was like, what the frig? So I'm glad that people liked that fight and respected it for pretty much all that it was, you know. Very, very good. It was a good fight. So yeah, okay, that is our 2023 fight of the year, is Max versus Zombie. That's crazy. That's a good one. All right, knockout of the year. This is our final award of the year. So we're going knockout of the year. Good nominees here. Let's take a look at who we've got. First is Josh Emmett.
Fence. Oh, doing right off the bat.
We got Brian Battle
right
coming
now.
out of nowhere here. The midsection. Those are our 4 nominees. Guys, again, I'm going to say them out loud. So you've got Stamp Fairtex with her, was it a liver shot almost? Like a kick to the body,
like,
to at least
right in the solar plexus, like right underneath those ribs. It was
terrible. That was Stamp Fairtex with that. That was at 1FC, of course. Then you've got Ismail Bonfim, who had the brutal knee knockout of Terrence McKinney in UFC. You got Brian Battle, which was a surprise pick, but people had voted that one up. I liked it. I thought that was a good one. I love it when it's just that slugfest back and forth. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was the first time Brian Battle came out with the blonde hair. So I did appreciate that as well. And then you've got Josh Emmett, of course, over Bryce Mitchell. That one's got a bunch of recency bias, I would say, because that just happened a couple weeks ago. So that's fresh on people's minds. But that is a disgusting one. I will say right now, the fan vote unanimously, 62% in favor of Josh Emmett. So that one won by far. Matt Padilla, I will give you the first pick, my friend.
at first I would have probably gone with Josh Emmett, but I think I was also suffering from some recency bias as well. Not gonna lie. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Brian Battle on this one because it was a hometown fight. It was so quick. Like you said, he had the blonde hair. He was coming off of his first loss, and you could tell he was trying to come back as a new person, as a new guy with a new mindset. He lost to a really good prospect, and you could tell how hungry he is to come back. And I think he won another fight after that this year. But I always love seeing somebody come back from, such a tough loss like he had in the beginning of the year, and then turn it around like that. And I mean, I'm sure everybody forgot about the loss after a knockout like that.
Yeah. And you are correct. So, Matt, he lost in December 17th of 2022, but then turns it around in May. So technically 2 fights this year, both wins. Yes, there was that knockout of Gabe Green at UFC on ABC 4. And then he fought again just recently, September 23rd against AJ Fletcher and got a rear naked choke. So we got 2 stoppages in the year. Beautiful bounce back. And yeah, like totally reinvents himself, like really comes back with passion and drive. And there he is. Knockout of the year, Matt Padilla with the what do you call that? Like the just out of nowhere pick for Brian Battle. I did not know that he would get a vote, so I'm very happy about it. Dr. Jimmy, what is your pick?
All right, I'm going to give you an honorable mention that didn't make the list. I got to go with it's not my pick, but the Poirier-Gaethje G2 fight. Come on. What a strike that was. Beautiful dip. Gaethje dips to the left, leads with the right hand for the distraction. Right foot comes across behind the back of the hand, back of the head, drops Poirier. It was textbook technique. But based on the list that we have, obviously, like the recency bias, like you said, like Josh Emmett, that was a frightening knockout. It wasn't just like a knockout; it was frightening. And I think like every bit, even Josh Emmett afterwards was saying that he was in the moment and he was excited after he won, but then he realized like this didn't look good, so he was genuinely concerned for Bryce Mitchell. But I got to go with Stan Fairtex. I got that knockout, that belly, like that body kick was just monstrous. It was a good fight too. If you watch the fight, Elise Anderson was like she was holding her own. She was standing toe to toe with Stamp, and they actually came out of a clinch. And as Elise was backing up, Stamp threw the right roundhouse, got her right in the solar plexus, and just folded her. It was like just perfectly placed, perfectly timed. So I got to give it to Stamp Fairtex for this one.
Damn, that is crazy, Dr. Jimmy. I did not think that would get a vote either. That's just me and my love for Stamp, putting her on as many categories as I can. That, like I will say, because Elise Anderson, former guest of the podcast, she's a fantastic individual, fantastic fighter. I had really loved Elise's chances going into that fight as well. As much as I love Stamp, like I thought Elise could do it, man. It was on home turf, right? Because it was in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Elise was going in there, and she looked good. I think that fight ended. Was it in the 3rd round?
Yes, it was. It was. I believe it was in the 3rd round. Yeah.
I feel like Elise kind of eked out the 1st round. The 2nd round was really close. I was like, holy crap! As I was watching, I was glued to the set. I couldn't believe it. And then Stamp with the friggin' finish that was so perfect. Like it was beautiful. That was definitely like way up there. I'll tell you, man, I can't believe I'm going to say it. I really like the Ismail Bonfim. I feel like the Bonfim knockout is better than the Bryce Mitchell knockout in terms of just how clean it was. Like it was just terrible the way McKinney just face plants, but like it was beautiful. The Bryce Mitchell one is crazy because when you realize what happens after, like the fact that the dude doesn't get up for like 6 days, like he was in the like they had to like just shut down, like it was crazy. That was really bad. But man, I think I'm gonna go with Matt Padilla's pick. This was not a pick that I had on my radar as well. This was one that someone had nominated in. And then when I watched it back, I was like, yeah, shoot, I remember that. And Matt, after hearing the way that you sell that, Brian Pooh Bear Battle with the freaking Fight Insight knockout of the year. That is a crazy one. I guarantee you nobody around the world has that as their knockout of the year, but it is ours. And I think it's well deserved, man. It was a crazy fight. I love those kind of wars, like just slugfest that goes like that. And coming off the loss, resetting, the blonde hair, the whole look, the attitude and everything like that. Brian Battle. God damn. Brian Battle, the knockout of the year. There we go. Matt, do you know him? You guys look familiar.
But he there for his last amateur fight because my my buddy David Lopez hit me up. He had nobody to corner him, like 2 days notice. And I was like, oh, screw it. Guess I'm going to Vegas. So I went. We won the belt. Brian Battle was the main event, and he actually lost that fight. So seeing everything he's been through, come around, win the Ultimate Fighter. I've been following his journey really closely, and it's really cool to see where he's gone.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That is cool. All right. Well, there we go. We've got some crazy winners for our 2023 Year in Review award show. So congratulations to the winners. Congratulations to all the nominees. Congratulations to all the friggin' fighters that have fought this year. Like, everybody's put on crazy fights. I feel like it was a really, really good year for fights. Now what I'd like to do very quickly is ask you guys for what is your biggest disappointment. We just celebrated all these fabulous things. You guys wanted to talk about disappointments. So did I. Dr. Jimmy, I'll turn it to you first for biggest disappointment in 2023.
This was pretty recent. Colby Covington. The performance was I was hoping for the typical Colby Covington, rush, pressure type fight, and it just wasn't there. I don't know if it was the ring rust or if it was the intimidation or what it was, that it didn't materialize in the way that I hoped that it would. I was hoping for a little more excitement, a little bit more trademark Colby Covington, but it let me down. I wasn't thrilled with the performance. So I would say that was my fight disappointment for the year. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a disappointment for me too, in the sense that all the lead up and everything that he had done to kind of get him in that spot.
Yeah.
And the fact that I've heard from people that he is a good guy, right? That this is all an act, that, when it comes to like training with the kids and all that stuff, that the dude is a good guy. And so I'm like, you know what? I respect him for what he's trying to do, all the personality and everything that he was creating. And then to fight like that, it was just, I mean, any number of things can happen. He's never come out with any excuses that I heard of. If anything, he's doubled down on saying that he thought he was winning the fight or that he won the fight, which is insanity to me. But yeah, that was disappointing. I mean, I lost a lot of money. I had, I think, 3 parlays. I had 3 parlays, all including goddamn Colby. So I lost everything that night. But Matt, what did you think about the Colby disappointment? Or were you not disappointed because you hate him?
No, I was definitely disappointed, but I also kind of expected it with how much time he had off. And I didn't think the matchup really made sense to begin with. I was really on that boat. Like, I didn't think it was going to be close. If the guy who you lost to twice lost to this guy twice, like, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, so disappointing for sure, Dr. Jimmy. I like it. That was a very disappointing moment in 2023. I think, like, I had already pre-made memes showing Trump putting the belt around him. Like, I was already, like, I had freaking stuff lined up, ready to go. I was so confident in this. Matt, what was your big disappointment for 2023? And it doesn't have to be like it can be anything, like disappointment in the fight world in 2023.
Well, considering this guy went undefeated this year, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised, but my pick for disappointment of the year is Khamzat Chimaev, because, when he came into the scene, he fights, like 3 times in a month, and then he's just defeated. There's so much activity, so much hype growing, and then, I don't know, he kind of fell off a cliff when it came to his activity. We've barely seen him at all. He missed weight horrifically against Nate Diaz, and then just barely ekes out a decision against a welterweight on short notice. And that performance really made me think that he's not built for 5 rounds at all. Like, if it goes to 5 rounds with a guy like Sean Strickland, he's going to get finished. And I mean that. Like, I don't think, if they make it past 2 rounds, I think Sean's going to TKO him in like 3 or 4 rounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hype is dead for.
Yeah, that's interesting. I also feel like, I don't know what happened with him and Darren Till. Did they break up? Why is there no more videos of those 2 guys hanging out in like Gucci stores and stuff? What happened to all that?
Yeah, I think Darren lost to DDP, and then he was like, we were never friends.
Oh, is that what happened? Good. Yeah, like, I mean, the whole Khamzat mystery, like the whole mystique around him and everything just kind of really vanished. Like, he really let his star fade in 2023 for sure. Like he definitely didn't keep up with the hype. I don't know what the reason is for that. Jimmy, any thoughts on Khamzat letting you down?
Yeah, I think you know what I gotta agree with Matt. I think that his fights his performance this year was he did a good job. He performed well. I mean, he wins his fights. I think to be honest with you, I'd love to see him fight in 2024. And you know who I want him to fight? I want him to fight Ikram Aliskerov, because Ikram Aliskerov is that's the only person that Ikram has lost to is Khamzat Chimaev. Ikram is 15-1. This guy is a legit fighter. So I'd love to see Khamzat redeem himself for 2023 by fighting Ikram and then proving that his win against Ikram was not a fluke. And it was a beautiful knock. If you watch that fight, it was a beautiful knockout. It was unbelievable. So, yeah, I guess you could say that the hype train kind of slowed for a bit there near the end of 2023. And, hopefully 2024 is going to be a better year for him.
Yeah, my biggest disappointment for 2023 may be Dr. Jimmy, assuming that we all watched that fight from Brave CF23 in 2019. Like,
but you gotta watch it. You gotta see that fight.
Sure. Yeah, all right, fine. Ikram, who you're talking about, I'm just looking him up here. Yeah, okay. So he's in the UFC. He's had 2 fights in the UFC after winning on the Contender Series.
Yeah.
Both fights end in knockouts in the first round, going 210 and 207. So this dude's making quick work of his opponents. Yeah, Dr. Jimmy, I could not pick this dude out of a lineup, but if you say he's the guy,
watch out for him in 2024. I'm telling you, if they give this guy a couple of fights, I think that he's. I would love to see them make the match of him against Khamzat as the rubber match. Yeah, sure, the fight was a few years ago, but this guy has gone 7 wins since that 1 loss, and I'd love to see him fight again.
Dr. Jimmy bringing the stats. Yeah, all right. Well, there you go, my friend. Big disappointment. All right. Well, let's wait. How did you have those stats ready if that was Matt's pick? Damn.
I come prepared. I do my homework, Timmy.
Wait, but that was Matt's pick, right?
No, I know. But it's funny you mentioned Khamzat because I have on my fighters to watch in 2023. I got Ikram Aliskerov on there.
Oh, all right. God dang, Dr. Jimmy. My disappointment of 2023 kind of harbors back to what we've been talking about on this podcast about how the award shows don't recognize anybody outside of goddamn UFC. I really feel like that's a shame on the fan base as a whole, the media, whatever, right? Like we continue to focus solely on the UFC. I've talked about on this podcast so many times, like John McCarthy and the Punk, Josh Thompson, like their podcast. They're both employees of Bellator, and every time I see a clip of their podcast, it's them talking about UFC fighters, and I'm like, I don't listen to your podcast, but like, do you guys talk about like Bellator because you guys are Bellator people? Like, I feel like there's such a push or a focus on UFC, and I feel like that's kind of a disservice. My disappointment falls along that line, and it just came out recently, but it's Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan with this quote. I think it was on his podcast or something like that. I read the article that talks about it, but it's Joe Rogan warning fighters outside the UFC that they are wasting their career and that nobody's watching. God damn it, man. Like, as fight fans, as fight media, as whatever, we should be promoting as many organizations as possible because competition breeds improvement, breeds success, breeds betterment. You know what I mean? By having more organizations and stuff like that. So I really feel like my disappointment of the year is really that comment by Joe, or just in general, the way that we seem to only focus on UFC. I think the MMA awards that just recently passed, those World MMA Awards, I think every award was won by a UFC fighter except for Themba, who won some, the guy that The Rock gave the house to and stuff.
Yeah.
I think the only award that wasn't won by a UFC fighter was given to him, and he won some sort of like inspirational fighter of the year. Like it was some sort of like, no offense, but like a gimme award, you know what I mean? And it was like a weird one. But like I just find that weird. Matt, you're in the fight community, you're around all these professional fighters, big name fighters and stuff like that. Does anyone ever talk about that like the UFC is just like the sole focus and that everything else is like kind of like a byproduct or a miss?
I mean, when it comes to like trying to maximize your like reach, Yeah, of course the UFC is the biggest thing. It's like baseball and apple pie at this point, you know. MMA is UFC. Like, no, there's a bunch of people that still call it that instead of the actual but
Yeah.
I don't know, that just surprises me from Joe Rogan for sure, considering he made like John Howard go viral for knocking out Ray Cooper at PFL a couple years ago. Like, he's bringing up a random fight like that, but he's going to say that it's also a waste of time. He brings up prospects all the time outside. So I don't know, maybe Dana was getting in his ear.
Well, that's the thing too. Yeah, like if I go into the quote just a little bit more, he says, "There's very good fighters in other organizations, but I often feel like they're wasting their career. I see these elite fighters that are fighting in Bellator or the PFL, and I'm like, hey guys, nobody's watching. I mean, some people are watching. You're getting a little bit of a fan base. I don't want to disrespect, but there's a reality. There's the XFL and there's CFL, and then there's the fucking NFL. And if you're not in the fucking NFL, are you really playing football?" It's so tough because I get what he's saying, but then on the other hand, I'm like, yeah, but dude, not everybody can be in the UFC. There's only so much room in the UFC. This is an individual sport. And these other organizations, like, you know, that's why we wanted Justin Gaethje to come in off of World Series of Fighting. That's why we wanted Chandler to come in off of Bellator. That's why we're so excited for MVP to come in, because these guys build their names in these other organizations. That's why Timmy B wants Stamp in the goddamn UFC, because these people build themselves in other places. And like, you need that. Otherwise, like, we're just watching Contender Series all the time. No offense. But like, you need people to grow and get famous elsewhere so that the UFC can have these massive stars come right in. Otherwise, like, it's going to take too long for us to build people just within the UFC, and then they don't have enough events for us to build those people. So I don't know. Dr. Jimmy, your thoughts on this?
It would be interesting. Well, you nailed something that I was going to comment on anyways. I think, I suppose Joe Rogan does oftentimes, maybe make a comment off the cuff or whatever, but obviously, in the context of that statement, he does say that there are excellent fighters in other organizations. And, those organizations, there are fighters that build their names and their reputations and their success in those organizations. You mentioned MVP, and I think Michael Page, who is going to be fighting on March the 9th against Kevin Holland, is one of those fighters who's made a name for himself in Bellator. So you have these other organizations that they're going to be coming to the UFC from. But I don't see how the logistics of something like this would work. But can you imagine a crossover, like, Marvel and DC comic book crossover? If you had like a PFL or Bellator or ONE FC and UFC crossover, and you put the best of the best in their divisions and their weight classes against each other, almost like, a tournament like they used to do in the old K1 days, like the divisional tournaments, and that you would work your way up to the championship. But, I get it. Like, the UFC has, it has the presence, it has the marketing, it has the name because it's been around since the 90s. But you're right. There are other organizations that have phenomenal fighters, and the UFC does recruit them because they see the talent and they bring them on board. But I do agree that I think that, and this is where your podcast is so fantastic. You shine a light on these other organizations and these other fighters that people wouldn't see and they wouldn't even know about. And I think, that's a wonderful thing. But yeah, I we'll see. Only time will tell. I know that the PFL is starting to get a lot more exposure too, especially with Ngannou doing what he's doing in his ridiculous fight against Tyson. Like, that's a fight we should talk about on another day if we don't have time today. But man, that's the exposure that you need to have with these other organizations.
Yeah, for sure. I just think, this is the moral of this podcast, which is just, you got to look at more than just the UFC. I also feel like there's just so many great stories out there too. Like, there's so many great stories, so many great personalities and people, but fight stories and things that are going on. So keep an eye out for those things, and obviously keep watching this podcast because we'll keep bringing those fighters to the show, right? Because we want to keep seeing them. That said, we're getting down to time, and I need a good prediction for 2024. Dr. Jimmy, I'll give you the honors of going first on this one, but a good prediction doesn't have to be a good prediction or a bad prediction. Just what do you predict is something that's going to happen in 2024?
I think in 2024, you're going to see Robelis Despagne. I don't know if I'm butchering his name. He's that 6'7", 260-pound guy that they just signed to the UFC from Fury. This guy is a Taekwondo bronze medalist from 2012. Okay, listen to this. These are his last 3 fights. June the 25th, 12 seconds first round. September the 24th, 3 seconds first round. December the 3rd, 4 seconds first round. This guy is going to make a big splash, I think, in the UFC. The other one that I think is that we need to keep an eye out for 2023, and I mentioned it already, I'm so looking forward to see Michael Page fight. There was a fight that he had earlier this year. He threw this rear roundhouse low kick to Yamauchi and obliterated his patellar tendon. It is one of the craziest knockouts, well, I guess TKOs that I've ever seen. And this is a guy who I think is going to bring a lot of charisma and a lot of flair and a lot of entertainment. And this is a guy who comes from Bellator, so another fight organization that people need to keep an eye on for talent. But that's what I think people need to keep their eye out for 2024. And also, we got a couple of fights coming up, but maybe we'll talk about that in a bit. So I'll turn it back over to you, Timmy.
So what's the first guy's name? I apologize.
Okay, so his name is Robelis, Robelis Despain. I believe he's Cuban, if I'm not mistaken. So Despaign, 6'7", 258 pounds, Taekwondo background, bronze medalist in 2012. He's got a 4-0 record, and he's been signed by the UFC.
And he cuts to 135, I heard, for a bantamweight.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's right. He walks out like this big. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. All right. So those are good things. Those are good predictions. That's more like what to watch out though for, Jimmy. Matt, are you going to save me here? I need a prediction for 2024. Something that's going to happen. Something crazy.
I think early into the year, Ilya Topuria is probably going to knock out Alex Volkanovski. So there's my wild prediction.
Is it okay? Do you have another prediction, Matt, or is that the prediction you've come to hit us with?
Other than that, I think Diego Lopez will definitely crack the rankings, at least top 10 for sure, top 5 hopefully. And outside of the UFC, I think the PFL could make a huge breakout event with Dumbe and Francis Ngannou.
Okay. Do you think Ngannou is going to fight for the PFL in 2024?
Probably not, or maybe. Maybe hold out for.
I mean, one of my predictions was that I think that he's not going to fight in PFL. First of all, I've said it here before. I don't think he's fighting for PFL ever. I feel like it's a publicity stunt just to get his name attached to PFL, but I don't think he's ever actually going to fight for PFL. If he does, it's got to be mixed rules. It has to be someone. So, I mean, people have been saying maybe Wilder, but they think that he's going to box Wilder. And I'm like, well, he might as well fight Wilder in PFL. Just do it in 4-ounce gloves, but boxing rules. You know what I mean? You got to do something to get PFL the boost. Do you think it's even possible we see Ngannou Wilder in PFL?
Maybe if Wilder just wants one more cash grab, considering it sounded like he was going to retire during his post-fight speech over this last weekend when he lost.
Yeah. I know, but they got to pay him something. They got to figure out some way to get Ngannou into the PFL, because otherwise this dude looks like he just wants to box. And PFL needs something for their super fight division to take off.
If anything, losing might have opened the door a little better, because it sounded like Joshua versus Wilder was going to happen. So, if you're going to lose out on that money fight, you might as well go for Francis.
Yeah. But you got to do it in PFL. PFL needs to make the move, right?
Yeah.
All right. My prediction. Wow, you guys really brought it down here with your fight predictions. My prediction is that ONE FC folds. I don't want it to happen. I do not want it to happen, but I've been predicting it for a while now. I feel like last year I might have said it's going to happen in a few years, but I feel like this is the year. I feel like their Amazon stuff has not done well at all. The production value, everything about it, it's kind of bombing. I really feel like they're spreading thin with the BJJ stuff, the Muay Thai, the whatever. I feel like they're spreading themselves too thin. They're not focusing on building a good roster of fighters that they can promote each event. They just have too many people. And there's been articles that have come out recently now saying that the funding is running out and that by the end of 2024, their backing is up. So I don't know if any of you read that, but I don't know, man. I worry about it. I don't want it to happen, but I feel like they need to restructure, do something so that they can friggin' start making money and start being a little bit more interesting to the common fan, because the fact that like nowhere had any 1FC fighters anywhere on any awards, like that's really bad when he's spending like whatever they say that he's losing every year, like 30 million a year, 20 million a year, whatever they're losing.
Right.
And then now he's doing like a second season of The Apprentice. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
Did you know he did a first season?
Nope.
Vaguely.
So Chatri did a season of The Apprentice, which I remember at the time. This was like 2-3 years ago. He did it at the time, and like the ads for it had like all these fighters. Like I want to say like George St. Pierre and a whole bunch of fighters. And so you're like, holy shit, it's a season of The Apprentice with all these fighters? No, they were freaking guest stars in the various episodes for the challenges. And it was just like a bunch of like normal people looking to be like a business person for Chatri. Dr. Jimmy, you'll like this. Season 2, Mikey Mushemi is a contestant in the season. But aside from that, it's all looks like it's like normal like business people. I just don't know what this is. I don't know how this builds 1FC, and I'm like, now you're focused on this, or like your efforts are there. I just don't know where all this goes. But my prediction, and if I get this right, I'm going to be a genius, is that 1FC folds or announces closure or announces sale by the end of 2024. I just don't see how they can keep making it work. It really worries me with what they're doing. Or they like scale way down or something, like, you know what I mean? Like that they're just putting on like house shows kind of thing. But I don't know how they feed all these stars. Like they've just got too much money going out with all these big name people, I feel. But that's my lousy prediction. Fights you are most looking forward to. We'll end it with that for this podcast. Matt, a big fight that you are looking for in 2024.
Easily Strickland versus DDP after the rematch. And I'm ready to see the second one inside the cage this time. A lot of good styles, DDP looks exhausted, but I think like he could actually fight like that for 5 rounds, and obviously Strickland fight for like 10 rounds. I think if it stays on the feet, it could be a really fun fight.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a crazy fight. Matt, do you think that fight in the crowd was staged?
I really don't think so. Even though I could see how people think it might be. I really don't think so. I just from, like my first 3 years of training, Strickland was there, and I know what he's like, so I could definitely see that.
Yeah. You mean because he's a lunatic?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard, man. Like when I saw it live, I'm like, or like when I first saw it, right? Like the first reaction, I'm like, that seems kind of staged. Like it just seemed weird. The way he asked the kid and stuff like that to move over. And then Gilbert Burns has come out after saying that right when he got there, he said, hey, if something happens, I'm going to get you guys to move. So I'm like,
But Gilbert Burns' wife made a comment. She's like, he was polite enough to ask us to move to the side.
Yeah.
That's very kind.
But Gilbert says that he did that even before that happened. Like he said, like, hey, if something happens, I'm going to tell you guys to move. Then when it does happen, he tells them to move. And then it happens. And I'm just like, I don't know. This is kind of strange. I don't want to believe that stuff is set up. Dr. Jimmy, fight for you?
I had 2 of them, and one of them was Strickland DDP, but I'd love to see Volkanovski Topuria. I think that Volkanovski, I think maybe we can agree with this, but I think he rushed his second fight against Islam. I'd like to see him redeem himself. He's one of my favorite fighters. He's such a bulldog. And I'd like to see him redeem himself, but and I know that Matt, you mentioned that you think that Topuria is going to knock him out. I hope that loss against Islam is not going to rattle his cage, and he's going to be able to come back and fight the way that he's known to fight. So it's a tough one between Strickland and DDP and Volk Topuria, but I'm going to go with Volkanovski Topuria as the fight that I'm looking forward to.
Nice. I'm going to go with a fight that I hope happens, has not been announced, and I don't think it is going to be announced, but I'm just going to say it anyways. Miesha Tate, Ronda Rousey 3 at UFC 300. I feel like they got to make that happen. I feel like that would be freaking crazy. The way that Miesha Tate looked in her last fight looked really, really good and solid. I would like to see that happen just for the crazy nostalgia of that and like what that would bring to the table. I feel like that's like pretty much the only like legends women's fight that you could really make, and that is actually possible. Like that's possible to make, and I think that would be freaking crazy. Matt, you're smiling at that one.
No, I like it. Yeah, it kind of surprised me, but it makes a lot of sense, honestly. Just where Misha's at, you know, I don't think she's probably gonna get to the title picture, but she still looks good enough to compete, like be around that top 5 range. And you know, Ronda was never out of that range. I think it would be a competitive fight even today.
Yeah, I think so. Dr. Jimmy, you like that pick of mine?
I do. I think it'll be a phenomenal fight.
Yeah, and how dare you, Matt? Because I feel like Misha, after that last showing, I do feel like she's in title contention. The bantamweight title is up for grabs in a very strange spot right now, and I feel like if Misha did one more fight like that over a top contender, that's title fight time for Misha. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's pretty close. Guys, it's been an incredible year. I do want to say thank you to you two for showing up, first of all. And I know like all the time, like your support and talking to you guys really means a lot to me. I do want to say thank you to all the guests that we've had on throughout this year. So this was another year. I didn't even think I was going to do a third year, but here we are at the end of this third year, episode 1, whatever I'm at. 151 or so. So we're getting close to like 3 full years of episodes with all the guests. I do want to say thank you. Like it's been crazy, like getting to meet all these people and truly becoming friends with like a bunch of them. You know, like there's a bunch of the people that I can message back and forth with now that are very open to things. It's very, very cool to have met them. You know, shout out to Britton Hart, who like my co-host at the time bailed out on me last second and I didn't have anyone. It was going to be a bare knuckle fighter. And I call up Britton Hart, strawweight champion of BKFC, and she's like, yeah, let's do this. Co-host like within like a less than a day, you know what I mean? So like that stuff is so cool to me, man. Getting to meet Bobby Green, obviously like my favorite fighter of all time, that was freaking crazy to be able to meet Bobby Green. I did want to say the most watched episode of the podcast this year, if you haven't watched it, was the Matt Brown episode. That one by far a lot. And I would say, you know, huge shout out to Matt Brown. That dude's freaking crazy. If you don't subscribe to his newsletter, you should subscribe to his newsletter. It makes you feel like a piece of garbage constantly because he tells you he tells you what a bitch you are and how you need to get up, right? Like, it's crazy. But it's exactly like it's literally Matt Brown talking to you every week in his newsletter. So I definitely would say that is freaking cool. I love that. It's very Matt Brown. But yeah, man, like this year has been crazy. It's been a fun time. You know, I got to go out to Fight League Atlantic and do some commentary for them on one of their shows and did their weigh-ins. So that's been crazy. I don't know what this next year brings, but Happy New Year to you guys. And Matt, what's some of your favorite moments of the year, and what are you looking forward to in 2024?
I mean, one of my favorites, you know, being on Fight Inside again. Right at the very end, I got it.
Get in there.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, like I said, I just sprained my knee the other day, so who knows? I really want to compete a lot more in jiu-jitsu. I literally got a text mid podcast for combat jiu-jitsu, so maybe that'll be in the future.
Oh crap. Okay. Like competing in combat jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
That is insane, first of all. Combat jiu-jitsu is crazy. If you were to compete in combat jiu-jitsu, do you not just focus on the strikes? Like I've seen some fights in combat jiu-jitsu, and you can tell some guys are just in there like, I'm just going to palm strike the shit out of this guy. And they're not going for submission at all. Like they're just going for like bludgeoning.
Yeah. Depends who I'm going against. If I go against like a pure jiu-jitsu guy, then I would absolutely do that, make him really uncomfortable and like be a dick about it. But if it's an MMA, I wouldn't expect him to be that like phased by it.
I don't know. It's such a weird competition. I'm excited for you, dude. If you do that, that's crazy. Who cares? You don't need your knee. You just need 2 palms. That's all you need.
Good thing I watched so much Power Slap. I could be ready for it.
How dare you? You are never invited back to this podcast, Matt. Like, oh no, good for you, Matt. I'm excited to see you, man. Like I know it's been a while since you competed, so I'm excited to see you back in there doing whatever it is, right? And good luck with the Henderson Fight Night, man. Like again, you said it in the intro, but like for those that don't know, like Matt, you're matchmaking for Henderson Fight Night and like running the show, right?
Yeah, I do help a lot with the production, the social media at Hendo's Fight Night on Instagram, and yeah, putting the fights together is pretty crazy. I never thought it was something I would do, but it's something I enjoy a lot now. Like I'm really passionate about it, and it's fun to see everybody's journey start from here and then see where it goes as pros. We've already got guys going pro. We had our first alumnus get into the UFC, Danny Silva. If you saw him on the
Nice.
series, one of the craziest fights in the show's history. Definitely watch that if you haven't.
Very, very cool, man. Yeah, and you did commentary this year too.
Yeah, I did. I did that for the last show. That was pretty fun.
Now, did they say that you had to tone down your energy for the commentating?
Oh, definitely not. But I was still jokes.
Yeah. Yeah, man, Matt, it's been cool, man. Like, I love getting to know you, buddy, and watching all the things you do. So congratulations and good luck in 2024. Dr. Jimmy, what do you got going on in 2024, my friend? What was one of your, or what were some of your big moments in 2023?
Well, obviously this podcast, Tim,
Yep.
like that's got to
Thank
be
you.
the biggest one. I really, really enjoyed, and we talked about this a little bit beforehand, but I've really been enjoying the karate combat stuff that's been going on. I know you had Sam Alvey on, Smiling Sam Alvey, which is phenomenal, and he ended up winning that heavyweight belt. And I love their format. It's action-packed. It's got some great talents, and I'm a big striking guy. I love seeing the striking, so that's been a lot of fun to watch. And I'm looking forward to just some more great competition and fights in 2024, whether it's the UFC, Karate Combat, PFL, whatever. I hope your prediction's wrong. I really like the ONE FC. So
It's a money thing, Dr. Jimmy. It's just
I know it's whatever money. It's a thing. I get it.
Yeah.
But I really like the talent there, and I really like the organization for what they do. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And hopefully not sprain my knee like Matt did. So Matt, I hope that you get better and you get back on the horse, and whatever comes your way. And congrats on your new employment with the matchmaking. That's fantastic stuff. I bet it's a challenge, but also incredibly fulfilling as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I do want to give a shout out. I was on several podcasts throughout the year as well, and did some guests on some other podcasts. So I do want to give a shout out to Tokencast, the Media Virus podcast. That's a crazy one. And Sports Debate Tuesdays. I've been there with Jason quite a few times. And that one, we talk strictly UFC, strictly like fights and stuff like that. But I've been on like a bunch of podcasts, like a bunch of like women's empowerment podcasts, which obviously I'm your key demographic guest, but just talking about a whole bunch of different things. It's been really cool getting to know the podcast community and stuff like that. Yeah, man. And again, just thank you to everybody. Thank you to Fight League Atlantic, Matt. Like when you're talking about like the matchmaking and stuff, like being a part of Fight League Atlantic and seeing what they do out there East Coast for those local fighters, it must be very similar for what you're doing in California for the fighters out there, right? Like when you're providing that local talent a place to shine, like a big event to be able to compete on for what these people do as their dream and stuff like that. It's crazy, man. So kudos to you guys. Kudos to Fight League Atlantic, man. I love those guys, and I really hope to do stuff with them in the new year as well. It's just beautiful getting to see the culture and the people and these people. Like I was just saying to the owner of Fight League Atlantic, like you're literally making people's dreams come true. Like it's so crazy. Like if you didn't exist, then all those fighters that are fighting, on 12 cards a year or 6 cards a year, whatever it is, right? Like they would have nowhere to do that because like who else is going to pick that up and do it? Like it's so hard. It's so crazy. So kudos to all the people that are putting out fights and putting out content for people to be able to do. So congratulations, guys. Aside from that, we're running a little bit long, which is fine. It's our end of year show. Again, congratulations to winners. Matt, anybody you want to say goodbye to as they've watched now for an hour and 15 minutes?
Oh, goodbye to Timmy B.
All right, Matt. And Dr.
Everybody.
Jimmy, anybody that you want to say goodbye to? Sorry, Matt, did I cut you off?
No, you're fine.
Okay. Dr. Jimmy, anybody?
I want to say bye to my new BFF, Matt Padilla. And of course, Timmy B, my boy, and all the Fight Insight fans. Keep watching. This is such a fantastic podcast. Looking forward to seeing it grow even more in 2024.
Yeah, man. Have a good one, guys. Thank you so much. And
Cheers.
all the best to everybody. Happy New Year's to everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, too.
See ya.